The unexpected enemy. The war between the humans and the alien forces had been raging for months. The Tukor, an ancient and powerful alien race, had easily outmatched Earth's military at every turn. The human defenses had crumbled under the pressure of the Tukor's superior technology, and the once proud cities of Earth were now nothing more than rubble. With every passing day, the alien forces moved closer to total victory. Earth's resistance seemed futile, and humanity had little hope left. Yet, despite the dire situation, there was a small, defiant flicker of hope. In the depths of the human underground bunkers, a group of scientists and soldiers were secretly working on something the Tukor had never seen before. The Tukor believed that they were dealing with a primitive species, a group of weaklings who could be crushed without effort. They underestimated humanity's ability to surprise, and they were about to learn that the humans had one last card to play. It all started when the alien fleet arrived near Earth's orbit once again. Their massive warships, floating ominously in space, were ready for the final push. The Tukor commanders ordered their ships to prepare their weapons, confident that this would be the end of the war. All that remained was for them to fire the final shot, the one that would wipe out the remaining human forces and leave Earth a hollow shell. At their command center, the Tukor sat in their blackened chairs, watching the planet below. The humans, scattered and desperate, had little to fight with. Some had taken to the ancient underground cities, while others hid in the last few remaining military strongholds. Their technology was nothing compared to that of the Tukor. The alien race had vast fleets and energy weapons capable of obliterating entire cities with a single shot. But there was one thing the Tukor had not counted on. Humans didn't give up easily. A strange signal had appeared from Earth. It was not the usual chatter of military desperation or a call for mercy. No, this was different. It was an encrypted message. The aliens were puzzled. They had intercepted countless communications from Earth in the past, but this one was unlike anything they had ever encountered. The message was not a cry for help or a surrender. It was a challenge. The Tukor commanders decided to investigate. Their fleet's advanced technology allowed them to decrypt most signals, but this one, it baffled them. It didn't fit the usual patterns of communication. It was too simple, too primitive. They finally decoded it, and the words were clear, though they seemed impossible. Humanity has one surprise left. Prepare yourselves. The Tukor laughed at the message. What could humans possibly do now? Their most advanced weapons had already failed to stop the alien onslaught. The warships of Earth were powerless against the might of the Tukor fleets. And yet there was something about the message that struck a chord with the aliens. Could there really be something hidden on Earth that they had overlooked? Something capable of turning the tide of war? The Tukor dismissed the message as a pathetic attempt to delay the inevitable. The humans were cornered. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. But just as they were about to resume their bombardment, something happened that they did not expect. A group of human ships, small, old, and outclassed by the Tukor, launched into space. At first, it seemed like a last-ditch effort, a futile attempt to fight back. The ships were primitive, their designs outdated, and their technology years behind that of the Tukor. The alien fleet watched, unimpressed, as the humans sent their ships into space, their engines sputtering and barely holding together. But as the ships approached the Tukor command center, something incredible happened. Without warning, the human ships released a strange, blinding light. It wasn't a weapon. It was something else. The light reflected off the Tukor ships, and for a brief moment, the alien fleet was blinded. The Tukor commanders frantically tried to adjust their shields and sensors, but it was too late. The human ships had deployed something the aliens had never seen before, ancient technology, hidden deep beneath Earth's surface, waiting for the right moment to emerge. The Tukor had assumed that humanity's technology was weak and obsolete. They never thought to consider that Earth might hold secrets older than the galaxy itself. And now, the Tukor were beginning to realize that they had underestimated their enemy. What they didn't know was that the humans weren't just sending out ships. They were sending out the first phase of a powerful weapon, a weapon unlike anything the T-Corps had ever encountered. The signal had been the first hint. The light was just the beginning. The humans weren't done yet, and the T-Corps had no idea what was coming next. The war that the T-Corps thought was already won had just taken a turn. The humans were no longer just fighting for survival. They were about to fight for something far more important, their place in the galaxy. And this time, it was the T-Corps who would have to fear what the humans had in store. The awakening of Earth's hidden power. The T-Corps fleet was in turmoil. Their commanders barked orders at their crews, trying to regain control of the situation. What they had initially dismissed as a few desperate human ships had quickly turned into something more dangerous. The blinding light from Earth's vessels was disorienting, and the T-Corps' advanced sensors struggled to recalibrate. But this wasn't just some random flare. This was deliberate, and it was calculated. On Earth, the world's remaining leaders were gathering in secret, watching the events unfold on a large screen in a hidden underground facility. What they had sent into space was just the beginning. The ancient ships, the ones they had unearthed from deep within the planet's forgotten vaults, were only a small part of humanity's trump card. The true power was still locked away. General Marcus Hayes, one of the last commanders of Earth's military, looked at the map on the screen, his expression tense. His hands gripped the edges of the table as he studied the growing movement of the alien fleet. They had sent their ships, slow, old, and seemingly insignificant, but that was only a distraction. The T-Corps had no idea what was coming next. "The fleets won't buy us much time," General Hayes muttered under his breath. "We need the second phase of the plan, and we need it now." Beside him, Dr. Elena McKinnon, the lead scientist overseeing the project, paced nervously. She was the one who had uncovered the ancient technology beneath Earth's surface, the technology that had been hidden for centuries, waiting for the right moment to be unleashed. She had seen it herself, and she knew what it was capable of. But she also knew how dangerous it was. "Once we activate it, there's no going back," Elena warned. "The T-Corps won't just stop with Earth. They'll try to destroy everything in their path. We need to be ready for the consequences." General Hayes looked at her with determination in his eyes. "We've already lost everything. The Earth is hanging by a thread. We don't have the luxury of hesitation. Activate it." Elena nodded grimly, and within moments, a series of buttons were pressed, triggering a chain of events that would change the course of the war. In secret bunkers, deep within Earth's underground complexes, massive doors slid open, revealing colossal structures that had been dormant for millennia. At first, nothing happened. The T-Corps continued their attack, their ships firing devastating blasts toward Earth. The world's remaining defenses were no match for the alien technology. But in the depths of the planet, something stirred. The ancient ships that had once sailed through the stars before the rise of the T-Corps, long before the first alien invasion, began to activate. Their dormant engines hummed to life, and their enormous forgotten weapon systems powered up. The world watched in awe as, for the first time in centuries, these colossal warships were awakened. The T-Corps commanders, still in their command centers, watched this unfold with growing disbelief. What were these ships? How were they able to power up with such ease? They had assumed that Earth's technology was nothing but primitive and backward, but this was something else entirely. From one of the largest ships, a massive cannon extended from its belly, pointing toward the sky. Its energy levels surged, creating a shockwave that rippled through space. As the T-Corps fleet watched, helpless and stunned, the ship unleashed its full power, sending a devastating pulse of energy that tore through the void. The T-Corps fleet was caught completely off guard. The energy pulse obliterated their outermost ships, causing explosions that rocked their ranks. The once unified fleet began to fracture, with debris floating through space where their advanced warships had once stood. The humans' ancient fleet had just delivered a devastating blow. The T-Corps commanders frantically attempted to regroup, sending out emergency signals to their forces. But it was clear that their confidence in their superiority had been shattered. These were not the humans they had expected. Their technologies were far more advanced than the T-Corps had imagined, and they had just unleashed something that the aliens could not comprehend. On Earth, the excitement was palpable. The generals and scientists watched the screens in awe as the ancient fleet began its counterattack. For the first time in the war, humanity felt hope. But at the same time, they knew the T-Corps wouldn't just back down. This fight was far from over. General Hayes turned to Dr. McKinnon. "We've made our move, but we can't stop now. We need to keep pushing." She nodded, though there was a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. The battle had only just begun, and the full scale of what humanity had unleashed was yet to be fully realized. In space, the T-Corps were reeling. Their once certain victory now seemed distant. The humans had awakened something ancient, something powerful, and they had just begun to fight back. The T-Corps now faced a new, unexpected enemy, one that they had underestimated completely. But the war was far from over. The ancient fleet may have struck the first blow, but now both sides would fight to the bitter end, with the fate of Earth hanging in the balance. The T-Corps would not let their dominance slip so easily, and the humans knew they had to prepare for even greater challenges ahead. A glimpse of the future. The T-Corps fleet had never been so disorganized. The sudden and unexpected attack by Earth's ancient ships had caught them off guard, and their once confident commanders were now scrambling to adjust. In the heart of the T-Corps command ship, Captain Zara Kor stood before the tactical display, watching as the scattered debris of her once unified fleet drifted helplessly in space. The humans had done the unthinkable. They had not only survived their attack, but they had struck back harder than anyone had anticipated. She clenched her fists, her long alien claws digging into the metal of the control panel. This was not how it was supposed to go. The humans were supposed to be weak, primitive, helpless, easily crushed under the might of the T-Corps Empire. But now, after just one blow from their ancient warships, their fleet was in tatters. And what was worse, Captain Kor could feel it in her gut. This was only the beginning. "Deploy reinforcements," Zara barked, her voice low with fury. "Call in the Red Sky Squadron. We cannot afford to let Earth's forces regroup." Her officers hesitated. It was rare for her to show such emotion, but the threat the humans posed now was undeniable. They had awakened something powerful, something beyond their understanding. As Zara's officers scrambled to obey, she turned her thoughts inward. Back on Earth, General Marcus Hayes watched the screen in front of him with a mixture of excitement and wariness. The ancient ships, now active, were beginning to show their full potential. Humanity had just revealed the first of many surprises, and while it felt like victory, he knew the real battle had only begun. The T-Corps had been rattled, but they wouldn't give up easily. The next phase would determine the fate of the planet. Dr. Elena McKinnon, standing beside him, watched the large display with concern. The ancient fleet was powerful, but how long would they be able to hold up against the might of the T-Corps? "We've made them bleed," she said quietly, her voice tinged with a touch of doubt. "But I can feel their response coming. This is only a small victory." The general didn't look away from the screen. "We've shown them we're not to be underestimated. Now we prepare. We need to go on the offensive before they can regroup. We can't wait for them to strike back." As the words left his mouth, the sounds of communication officers in the background intensified. The news was spreading fast. Earth had just shown that its ancient fleet could match, if not overpower, the T-Corps' most advanced warships. The word was out. Humanity was no longer just a target, but a force to be reckoned with. On the T-Corps flagship, Captain Kor was already taking drastic measures. She activated her personal communicator and called the High Council of the T-Corps Empire. Her face remained stoic, but inside, she felt the heavy weight of failure. "Council, we face a new situation," she said, her voice steady but laced with a dangerous edge. The humans have awakened ancient power, something we do not understand. We need to adjust our strategy immediately. They have made their move, and we must respond. The Council's leader, a towering alien figure known as Lord Tikor, regarded her with cold, calculating eyes. "Captain, your fleet has failed. You are to be held accountable for this blunder. Return to the capital for reassignment." Zara's blood ran cold, but she masked it. "Understood, my lord," she replied through gritted teeth. But there was something else in her mind now, a realization that the war was no longer just about domination. It was about survival. In a dark corner of the Tikor ship, Zara Kor began to formulate a new plan. She knew that the humans had something else in their arsenal, something beyond just their ancient ships. Their willingness to surprise their enemies was their greatest weapon, and now she needed to understand them. Meanwhile, on Earth, the situation was quickly escalating. The ancient warships had shown their power, but they were not invincible. General Hayes knew that if humanity was to win, they would have to keep the Tikor guessing, keep them off balance. The key was to stay unpredictable. "We need more information on their fleet's movements," he ordered, turning to one of his officers. "Gather all available intelligence. We can't let them regroup." Dr. McKinnon joined the conversation. "And we need to understand how the ancient fleet is reacting. There's a hidden danger we haven't fully explored yet. They weren't just fighting to defend Earth. They were on the edge of unlocking an ancient mystery that could give them the power to defeat their enemies once and for all." Back on the Tikor flagship, Captain Kor was coming to the same conclusion. She couldn't underestimate the humans again, and as much as her pride stung, she knew the only way to win was to understand them better. But how? In the depths of her mind, an idea began to form, an idea that could turn the tide of war. But it would require a level of risk that Tikor had never taken before. It would be dangerous, unpredictable, and it might just give the humans an advantage they had not yet imagined. The next phase of the war was approaching, and both sides knew it would be the defining moment of their struggle. As Earth prepared for its next move, and the Tikor rallied their forces, one thing was certain. This battle would not be like anything either side had ever fought before. With the first strike launched, the galaxy was on the brink of an all-out war, a war where humanity's past might just hold the key to its survival. "You said." The counterattack. The hum of the command center was deafening. The air was thick with anticipation as General Marcus Hayes stood before the massive holomap of the galaxy, his eyes scanning the fleet movements of the Tikor Empire. The enemy was regrouping, preparing for their next move. Hayes could feel the weight of responsibility bearing down on him. The survival of Earth, and perhaps the entire galaxy, rested on the next series of decisions. His fingers hovered over the control panel as he gave orders to the fleet. "Alert all ships," Hayes said, his voice firm. "Prepare for an immediate counterattack. We are not waiting for them to strike first. We move now." A ripple of tension spread through the room as Earth's fleet, still shaken by the first successful assault, began to form up. Humanity's ancient warships, relics of a forgotten era, had been a wild card, but now they had to be used strategically. The Tikor had made their move, and humanity would not allow them to gain the upper hand again. Dr. Elena McKinnon, who had been working tirelessly in the background to decipher the true potential of the ancient ships, approached Hayes with a grim expression. She knew that their advantage was fleeting. "General, there's something we need to discuss. I've been analyzing the Tikor's movements, and I believe they're preparing for a massive offensive. They will hit us with everything they've got." Hayes nodded grimly, knowing she was right. The Tikor had a powerful fleet, but they had underestimated humanity's resourcefulness. He turned his gaze back to the holomap, his eyes narrowing as he noticed something unexpected. The Tikor fleet had split into two parts. "Are they retreating?" Hayes muttered, unsure if this was a trick or a strategic move, or preparing for an all-out attack. Before McKinnon could answer, one of the officers in the command center called out, "Sir, We've intercepted a transmission from the Two-Core flagship. They're not retreating. They're consolidating their forces for a final assault. We've never seen them move like this before. They're bringing in reinforcements from the outer colonies. Dame, Hayes cursed under his breath. They mean to crush us with overwhelming force. It's now or never. As the gravity of the situation settled in, the general's thoughts shifted. He needed a way to throw off the Two-Core's calculations, to keep them guessing. Humanity had one thing that Two-Core didn't: unexpected tactics. He made a quick decision. We can't let them dictate the terms of this war, he said decisively. Initiate Phase 2, deploy the stealth units, and send in the ancient ships on a decoy mission. The officers around him looked confused, but they trusted their leader. They knew that Hayes often saw things from a different angle, and it was that thinking that had won them their initial victory. We'll send the oldest ships first, Hayes continued. They won't expect it. The Two-Core will focus all their attention on them, thinking they're easy prey. But that's when we'll strike. We'll draw them in close and then hit them with everything we've got. McKinnon, though nervous about the plan, nodded in agreement. It's risky, but it just might work. If we can draw the Two-Core in and make them overcommit, we'll have an opening to hit them where it hurts. The orders were quickly carried out. The ancient warships, which had once been dismissed as relics of a bygone age, now became the spearhead of humanity's offensive. As they moved towards the Two-Core fleet, their sleek designs cutting through the void of space, humanity's warriors prepared for what would come next. On the Two-Core flagship, Captain Zora Kor stood before her officers, her face hard as stone. The fleet had been in disarray since the first clash with Earth's ancient ships, but they were regaining control. The reinforcements from the outer colonies were arriving, and she had already begun formulating her next plan of attack. This time, they would not fail. Prepare for battle, Zora commanded, her voice steady but with an edge of desperation. We've been playing games long enough. This time, we'll end it. The Two-Core fleet had grown massive, and the final assault was imminent. Their strategy was clear: overwhelm Earth's forces with sheer numbers, crush the ancient ships, and then deal with whatever human tactics they might still have up their sleeves. But there was one problem. Zara knew the humans were clever. They had something unexpected planned. There's something about those ships, she murmured to herself, her mind racing. We've underestimated them once, but we won't make that mistake again. Her officers watched as she paced, her every movement sharp with intensity. She turned back to them, eyes glinting. Prepare for everything. Let's finish this. But as the Two-Core ships moved into position, they were met with an unexpected surprise. Humanity's warships, those ancient behemoths, had done the impossible. They had disappeared from view. They were no longer visible on the Two-Core sensors. What the? Captain Kor hissed. Where are they? Suddenly, the Two-Core flagship shuddered violently as Earth's forces erupted from the shadows, launching a surprise attack. The ancient ships had done their job. They had drawn the Two-Core into a trap. But it wasn't just the warships that came out of hiding. Humanity had pulled out all the stops. Ships from every corner of Earth's colonies, from military bases to civilian craft repurposed for war, joined the assault, adding weight to the surprise. The battle was fierce, the vacuum of space filled with explosions, laser fire, and debris. But in that chaos, a new hope was born. Humanity was no longer just a target. They were a force. Back on Earth, Dr. McKinnon and General Hayes watched as the battle unfolded. They knew the stakes, but as they saw their forces gaining ground, a small glimmer of hope sparked within them. It was not just the humans' weapons or ships that were winning them this war. It was their determination, their unity. And as they watched, Hayes felt a stirring in his chest. The Two-Core had made one fatal mistake. They had underestimated humanity. And now, the war was truly on. The turning tide. The battle raged in the cold vacuum of space, a symphony of destruction where the echoes of war could only be heard in the silence of the cosmos. The ancient ships, those long-forgotten behemoths, had become the tip of humanity's spear. They had drawn the T-Core fleet into a trap, and now the humans were pushing back with everything they had. General Marcus Hayes watched the battle unfold on the holographic map in the command center. The ancient ships had done their job, creating enough confusion for humanity's fleet to strike at the heart of the T-Core's forces. It was exactly what they had hoped for, exactly what they needed. But the fight wasn't over yet. "We've lost 5 ships already." A voice broke through Hayes' thoughts. It was Lieutenant Darla Singh, her face grim as she observed the tactical screen. The T-Core aren't backing down. They're regrouping for another strike. Hayes' jaw tightened as he gripped the edge of the table. He knew they couldn't keep up this pace for long. The T-Core might have underestimated humanity in the beginning, but now they were fighting with everything they had. It wasn't just about technology anymore. It was about survival. "I need a way to break them now," Hayes muttered, his mind racing. The ancient ships could only take so much punishment. The T-Core had brought in reinforcements, and they were showing no signs of slowing down. They had more firepower and more ships than humanity could match. Suddenly, a thought struck him. "McKinnon," he called out, turning toward the scientist who had been tirelessly working in the background to decipher the potential of the ancient ships. Dr. Elena McKinnon looked up from her station, her face pale but determined. "Yes, General. You've been studying the ancient fleet for weeks now," Hayes said, his voice low and urgent. "Is there anything at all, that we're missing? A hidden weapon, a weakness in the T-Core's fleet? I need something to tip the scales in our favor." McKinnon hesitated, her fingers flying across her console as she reviewed the data. Then she stopped. Her eyes widened. "There is one thing," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "but it's risky. It could backfire if we don't do it right." Hayes' heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" "The ancient ships," McKinnon began, her voice gaining strength. "They were designed with a unique system, something I've only just begun to understand. It's a subspace weapon, one capable of disrupting entire fleets by creating a rift in space itself. If we can activate it, it could disable the T-Core ships. But it's never been tested before." "Activate it," Hayes ordered without hesitation. "If we don't try, we're finished." McKinnon nodded, though she could see the doubt in the general's eyes. It was a desperate move. A weapon like this hadn't been used in centuries, and no one knew what kind of consequences it might have. But it was their only hope. As McKinnon began the complex process of initializing the weapon, General Hayes turned his attention back to the battlefield. The T-Core were beginning to regroup, launching a new offensive. Their ships moved in formation, powerful and relentless. Humanity's fleet had already lost several vessels, and the ancient ships were beginning to show signs of wear. "Now or never," Hayes muttered under his breath. He had always believed that humanity could pull through, no matter the odds. But this time, the odds seemed insurmountable. At that moment, the tension in the command center was palpable. The sound of the countdown filled the room. "Subspace weapon online," McKinnon called out, her voice steady. "Initiating now." A deep hum resonated throughout the room as the ancient ships activated the weapon. For a brief moment, everything seemed still. Then, with a deafening roar, space itself seemed to twist. A rift, a tear in the fabric of reality, opened up in the middle of the T-Core fleet. The effects were immediate. The T-Core ships, once confident in their overwhelming numbers, suddenly froze. Systems malfunctioned, communications were severed, and the ships began to drift aimlessly in space. The rift had destabilized their fleet's systems, leaving them vulnerable. It was as if the very laws of physics were no longer obeyed in that section of space. "We did it," Lieutenant Singh shouted, her voice full of disbelief. "The T-Core are immobilized. We have them." The room erupted in cheers, but General Hayes remained focused. The victory was only temporary. The T-Core would adapt. They always did. But for now, humanity had gained the upper hand. We've won this battle, but the war is far from over, Hayes said, his voice grim. We need to hit them hard now, before they can recover. Dr. McKinnon turned to him, a worried expression on her face. We have to be careful, General. The rift we just created, it could destabilize the entire sector. If we don't close it soon, we could be in trouble. Hayes nodded. The rift was a dangerous weapon, one that could backfire at any moment. But for now, it was their greatest advantage. Close it when you can, he said. But for now, we fight. As Earth's fleet advanced, the T-Corps struggled to regain control. Humanity had struck when they were weakest, and the T-Corps had underestimated the power of human ingenuity. The war was turning, and though it was far from over, for the first time, the T-Corps were on the back foot. In that moment, General Hayes knew that the tides of war had shifted. Humanity had won a victory, but more challenges lay ahead. The fight was far from over, but this victory was a sign that the impossible could be achieved. Earth's greatest weapon wasn't their ships, it was their will to fight, to survive. And that would be the T-Corps' undoing. The T-Corps' retaliation. The victory that had been won so fiercely was still fresh, but it wasn't enough to relax. Humanity had struck a powerful blow, but the T-Corps were not a race to be defeated easily. They would adapt. They would retaliate. General Marcus Hayes stood in the command center of Earth's flagship, staring out into the expanse of space. The T-Corps fleet had been crippled, but their power wasn't gone. If anything, they were angrier now. They would come back with everything they had. General, Lieutenant Singh's voice broke the silence. The T-Corps are regrouping. They're preparing a counterstrike. Their ships are rearming, and they're closing the gap. Hayes knew this day would come. They had been lucky. The subspace weapon had disrupted their systems long enough for humanity to deal a blow, but it had also caused ripples throughout the galaxy. The T-Corps were not going to let this slide. They would retaliate with all their might. What's the status of our fleet? Hayes asked, his voice steady but with a hint of urgency. Most of our ships are still operational, but we've lost quite a few, Lieutenant Singh replied. We're down to about 60% of our fleet's fighting strength. The T-Corps are going to overwhelm us if we don't act quickly. There was no time to waste. Hayes took a deep breath and looked at the holographic map of the battlefield. The T-Corps were formidable. Their ships were technologically advanced, far beyond what humanity had ever seen. They had more ships, more firepower, and more experience in warfare than Earth could hope to match. But they had underestimated humanity before. They couldn't make that mistake again. We need to hit them hard, Hayes said decisively. Strike before they can finish rearming. We have to keep the pressure on them. McKinnon, who had been working tirelessly in the background, approached. General, there's a risk. The rift is still unstable. If we use it again, it could have catastrophic consequences. Hayes turned to her, his face hard. He understood the danger, but there was no choice. The T-Corps were coming. Humanity had no other option but to risk it. We don't have a choice, Dr. McKinnon, Hayes said. Activate the rift again. If it's the only way to slow them down, we have to take the risk. McKinnon hesitated but nodded. I'll do it, General. But you need to know the consequences. If we don't close it in time, the entire sector could collapse. It's dangerous, but it's our best shot. Hayes knew that. But in war, danger was a constant companion. If humanity was to survive, they would have to face the risk head-on. The ship's internal systems hummed to life as the subspace weapon powered up once again. A sense of anticipation filled the air, followed by a tense silence. The rift had been the key to their previous victory, but this time there was no guarantee it would work in their favor. Outside the command center, the remaining fleet of Earth's ships prepared for the assault. They were battered, bruised, and tired, but they had something the T-Corps lacked: the will to fight, the will to survive, the will to win. General, Lieutenant Singh's voice was tinged with concern. The T-Corps are moving. They're coming in fast. We won't have much time before they're on us. I know, Hayes replied grimly. But we have to hold them off. We'll make them regret underestimating humanity. McKinnon's hands moved quickly across the console, her fingers dancing over the controls. The rift generator powered up once again, and a deep, rumbling sound echoed through the ship's hull. The lights flickered as the subspace weapon came online. "Ready, General," McKinnon said, her voice steady but filled with tension. "Initiating the rift. Now." A powerful surge of energy erupted from the ancient ships, and space itself seemed to fold and twist as the rift opened again. The T-Corps fleet was thrown into chaos. Their ships faltered, their systems struggling to function as the subspace disruption washed over them. "Now's our chance," Hayes shouted. "Hit them with everything we've got." The Earth fleet launched their assault. Missiles and energy blasts tore through the T-Corps' weakened ships. For a moment, it seemed as though victory was within reach again. But the T-Corps were not done yet. "They're countering," Singh yelled. "Their ships are adapting. They've found a way to shield themselves from the rift." Hayes' heart sank. The T-Corps were more resourceful than they had anticipated. They were learning, evolving, and soon, they would find a way to shut down the rift once and for all. "We can't hold them off forever," McKinnon warned, her voice frantic. "The rift is destabilizing faster than I expected. If we don't close it soon, it could tear the fabric of space apart." The rift was an incredible weapon, but it was also dangerous. Humanity had only moments before the consequences would become catastrophic. "We have to make a choice," Hayes said, his voice tight with tension. "Do we push forward and risk everything, or do we close the rift and try to fight them the old-fashioned way?" The clock was ticking. The T-Corps were adapting, and they were getting closer. Every second counted. But closing the rift would mean losing their greatest advantage. "We can't risk it any longer," Hayes decided. "Close the rift. Now." McKinnon's hands flew over the controls, her face a mask of concentration. Slowly, the rift began to collapse, closing in on itself. The sudden shift in energy left the T-Corps disoriented, but they were not defeated. Humanity had gained a temporary advantage. But the war was far from over. The T-Corps would return. They always did. And this time, Earth would have to fight smarter than ever before. As the rift closed, Hayes looked out at the stars. The battle was still raging, but the fight for humanity's survival had only just begun. The final stand. The atmosphere aboard Earth's flagship was thick with tension. The rift had closed, but the aftermath of that unstable weapon was far from over. The T-Corps were not the kind of enemy to be driven away easily, and they were regrouping, faster than anyone could have anticipated. General Marcus Hayes stood at the command center, his jaw clenched in determination. The fleet had taken heavy losses, and the T-Corps had shown no signs of retreat. It was clear that this would not be a battle won by strategy alone. It would take everything they had, every ounce of strength, every weapon, every tactic. "Sir," Lieutenant Singh's voice broke through the tension. "The T-Corps are regrouping. They're preparing for one final push. It's now or never." "How much time do we have?" Hayes asked, his voice low but resolute. "We estimate that their assault will begin within the next 10 minutes, Singh replied, her eyes scanning the ship's readouts. "If we don't act quickly, we'll be overrun." The time for cautious tactics was over. It was time for a final, decisive blow. Hayes turned to McKinnon, who had been working tirelessly on the rift generator. She had the same look of determination, but there was also a deep concern in her eyes. "We have one last chance, General," McKinnon said, her voice steady despite the gravity of the situation. "We can overload the rift generator's core. If we do, it'll create an energy wave powerful enough to disable the T-Corps fleet. But it's not guaranteed, and we might lose everything in the process." The room fell silent. The risk was enormous. If the overload didn't work, they would have no way of stopping the two core. But if they didn't try, Earth was doomed. "We don't have a choice," Hayes said. "Do it. Overload the core. Prepare to give it everything we've got." McKinnon nodded, her fingers flying over the console. She quickly entered the necessary commands, initiating the countdown for the core overload. The room vibrated with the rising hum of energy as the rift generator reached its critical point. "All ships, prepare for the final assault," Hayes barked. "We either win today, or we perish trying. For Earth." Outside, the remnants of Earth's fleet gathered, battered but determined. Their remaining ships, though fewer in number, had been reinforced with weapons and shields. They were ready for one last stand. The T-Corps had underestimated humanity's resolve. It was time to prove them wrong. "General, the T-Corps are within range," Lieutenant Singh reported, her voice sharp with urgency. "They're coming in fast, too fast for a retreat. They won't get the chance to overwhelm us," Hayes said. "Prepare to fire everything we have. On my mark." As the T-Corps fleet closed in, the countdown for the rift overload continued. McKinnon's face was tight with concentration. They were so close, but there was no turning back now. It would work, or it wouldn't. The first wave of T-Corps ships descended on Earth's fleet like a storm. Energy beams erupted, tearing through the void. The battle was fierce, and Earth's fleet was fighting with everything they had left. "Now," Hayes shouted, his voice filled with the force of the moment. A brilliant flash of light exploded from the Earth flagship as the rift generator reached its peak. The surge of energy ripped through space, a massive shockwave that tore through the T-Corps fleet. Their ships faltered, their systems overloaded. Chaos erupted as the rift's power disabled their weapons and shields. The humans pressed the advantage. Ships fired everything they had left. Missiles, energy beams, and precision strikes struck down T-Corps warships one by one. The enemy fleet was scattered, thrown into disarray. The T-Corps tried to regroup, but they were losing their strength. "General, we've done it," Lieutenant Singh shouted. "The T-Corps are retreating. Their fleet is breaking apart." But Hayes knew it wasn't over. The T-Corps were resilient. They would retreat, but they would be back. This was not the end of the war. It was just a momentary victory. "Stay alert," Hayes ordered. "We've won this battle, but the war is far from over. Earth has made its mark today, and the T-Corps will remember it." As the T-Corps fleet turned and retreated into the darkness of space, Earth's fleet stood victorious, though battered. The humans had faced impossible odds, yet they had fought back with strength, courage, and the will to survive. General Hayes looked out into the vastness of space. It was quiet now, but he knew it would never remain so. Humanity had made an impact today, but they had also shown their enemies what they were capable of. The T-Corps would be back, and the war for the future of Earth was far from over. But for now, they had won, and that was enough. "Prepare for the next phase," Hayes said softly. "Humanity is no longer just a name in the galaxy. We are a force to be reckoned with." The battle for Earth had been won, but the fight was only beginning.